Hey, Sander here. So I have something kind of cool on the topic of radicalization here today. I have an interview with someone who actually has real-world experience de-radicalizing people. I met this person, Reddit username SchizoRobo, on a comment underneath one of my previous videos, and it caught my interest, so I then had a conversation with him. The conversation turned out to last several hours, but I cut down some of the more salient points so as to make it, well, watchable. I will have some audio visualizations on the screen, but if you're the type of person who likes a lot of visual action, maybe save this video for a long car trip or something, kind of podcast-esque. So to start things off, I'm going to read the comment that he left on my video because it adds a lot of much needed context. If you don't want to hear that, skip to the timestamp on screen, but for everyone else, let's go. So he says, wall of text, incoming. I try to go straight for the jugular of capitalism, which, in my opinion, is the dehumanization factor. I'll ask questions like, what would you do to be happy if you could do anything? People love talking about themselves. I almost always have to do a little back and forth here, sort of reframing the question depending on how they answered it. The reason, of course, being that almost everyone I've talked to has no knowledge of Marxism. As such, they often conflate happiness and wealth, kind of like value and price. Consequentially, the first dialogue usually goes something like this. Regarding work, an approachable and relatable topic, I ask, do you enjoy it? They'll usually say something like, it's okay, the money is better than my last job. But, I don't think my boss really likes me, and the work itself is pretty stressful. We do get an hour paid lunch on Fridays, though, which is nice. Boss usually takes us out on his dime. I try to listen intently, be interested, nod a little, and give eye contact. I'll say, they'll continue to vent, or they may give you an opening. They'll say, do you seem to care more about my job satisfaction than my boss does? Why do you ask? To which I'll say, well, real quick, let me ask you a fun question. What would you do every day if you didn't have to work at XYZ Corp? And they'll say something like, I don't know. I guess I'd have to find another job first. Do you mean like if I were rich and didn't have to work? And I'll say, well, kinda, but not exactly. I'm not exactly talking about wealth so much as what makes you happy. What do you enjoy doing? And they'll say something along the lines of, well, I like to paint sometimes, or fishing. Fishing is fun, no doubt. How long have you been into painting or fishing or whatever it is they said as a hobby? Ideally, they'll say something like this. Since I was 5, probably. My earliest memories were painting, but I hardly have time anymore. More than likely, you'll have to reframe again to uncover what work they find meaningful. Often, people don't really have time for what they actually enjoy anymore. So I'll say something like, I thought maybe it was a big passion or something. Did you want to be an artist when you were young? They'll say, well, I did enjoy art, but I never thought I was that good at it. I really wanted to do was to be a veterinarian. I'll say, and well, clearly you don't do vet work at XYZ Corp. What happened? Their story will often be something like, that was always just a dream. I love animals still. I'd have more pets if it weren't so expensive to feed and care for them. I just never considered making a career out of it. Years of expensive schooling. This job always pays enough for me to get on, so it also looks good in my resume. And I'll say, okay, well, you bring up a good point. How crazy are tuition prices, right? And textbooks? $180 for an exam voucher? Give me a break. Usually we can sort of commiserate here. So, crazy hypothetical. Would you get your veterinary degree if school were both free and you had the time? We're not talking about wealth here at all, so pretend you didn't work at XYZ and didn't even have to. I bet you'd enroll first thing. They'll almost always say, dude, I would follow this dream right now if I could. So I'll go, well, here's why I asked. It's usually easy to move this sort of conversation from criticizing capitalism if you know enough to speak somewhat authoritatively on the topic. But the absolute key to success, in my experience anyway, with the southeastern US, aka Fash City, is to leave out any of those magic trigger words until the very end of the conversation. I'm talking anarcho-anything, Marx-anything, socialism, communism, all of the scary words. If this conversation goes on for an hour, drop a bombshell at the very end. Try to make sure that this bombshell is the very last thing you say before you change the subject or suddenly become a little too busy to talk. Whatever you do, don't let them respond to the bombshell. This will leave them without closure for the curiosity you just piked. It gets them thinking. Hopefully, the next time you talk to them, they have questions. If not, it's pretty easy to pick a conversation back up about careers. But make sure they're interested and on common ground with you, or you're just wasting your time. As an aside, the absolute worst thing to do is to try to approach the topic as a debate. It never, ever works. Humans are a shit species who place too much stock in their own egos. They'll dig their heels in deeper into whatever political bullshit identity that they already have, so just don't even bother. If I've done my job, the first sign of progress is disenchantment with perks like paid lunch or an 80% employer-paid insurance premiums. It's a process, though it doesn't happen overnight. Nudge that Overton window and be patient. Patience is one tool we all need to have in abundance to do this sort of work. When you finally do hit the magic button, it's like these people got pulled out of the Matrix, but it might take months or even years of infrequent conversations to get there. Anyone who needs help with this, feel free to hit my inbox. I honestly don't know much about theory and would love to learn more, but I'm just good at talking to people. Root cause analysis. I was with an abusive spouse for 8 years, so I know how to find goddamn flaws in someone's argument. Hello to all the watch lists. Well, hello to all the watch lists indeed. Even talking about deradicalization seems a little dangerous in an age where the anti-fascists are considered terrorists, but, well, I actually did reach out, and our talk was very enlightening. So, without further ado, here's the interview. So tell me about your strats.
It's really the long and short of it was laid out in my original comment. I mean, there's not a whole lot of, I don't know, I guess especially nowadays, there's not a whole lot of opportunity that presents itself whenever I tend to stay off of most all social media except for Reddit and Snapchat.
Smart.
I keep a kind of a low profile, but I try. I use my Snapchat as an outlet too. I don't really go for the straight up radical. Oh yeah, we need to burn down the system like tomorrow. But I nudge people in that direction. Like a couple days ago. Have you ever seen the interview that Tupac Shakur gave with MTV, where he was talking about wealth inequality?
Oh no, it sounds cool though.
It's a fantastic interview, but I posted clips of that, and one of the people I'm friends with, she was actually a Trump supporter in 2016, and following the stuff that I post and the things that I bring up whenever I'm talking to her, she started leaning towards that, away from that, which is really cool to see, because what I'm realizing living in the South is that the majority of these people who vote Republican, they are literally brainwashed. I'm sure you know it just as well as I do, but they're voting against their own interests. And
oh yeah,
that's what I'm trying. I'm trying to show this girl, for example. I'll use her. She has 3 kids. She's a single mother. If anybody fits the definition of somebody who could benefit from some sort of social welfare, it's her.
Totally.
And, she got denied for what's it called? Food, it's not food stamps, but food stamps. She got denied because her employer, she was somewhere like $50 over the limit, and because of that, she got denied. However, few $100s a month.
Oh my God!
Makes that, that's government work, but
right,
stuff like that. I try to find examples, just through talking, not with any sort of apparent motive up front, just having conversation. I'll find somewhere that somebody isn't necessarily happy or satisfied with their life, and just kind of use that as an in to sort of show them the light, so to speak. Because like I said, whenever you manage to get these people pulled beyond just left of center, it's like they're like, oh my God, it's like they just woke up. It's like they're just seeing everything for the way it is.
It's honestly, it's almost religious in some ways.
Right, it is. And that's what I'm finding. I'll use my sister for example now. My sister is just, she's Q believing short of being full on down that rabbit hole, but she may as well believe in the whole the Q bullshit too.
Oh man.
Yes, I mean that's what I'm working with here.
Yeah, damn.
So I'll give you this. This is a really funny story actually. So as part of this leaving the whole abusive relationship nonsense, I reconnected with this side of my family that I have not spoken with, seen anything like that in 7 or 8 years.
Oh damn.
That's a long story. Fault of my ex, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. The point is, I was over there one day on a Sunday actually after Saturday night, Sunday mornings, my 12-hour shift. Well, some days I just say fuck it and stay up, and other days I get rest. But anyway,
I get that.
I went over next door because the place I'm staying right now started to reach out to her about something. I was bringing up a conversation about politics at that point. I knew what she was going to say before she even told me that. That's how predictable these Republican talking points, regardless of where you get them from, the majority of, if not all of, the news sources that lean right of center, they are all talking about the same things. And so whenever I approached my sister with this topic, and I forget what it was, but I knew that she was going to come back. It was something about the news sources, something about Fox News, Newsmax, OEN. I remember those three being brought up, and I knew that she was going to come back with, I don't really follow the mainstream sources anymore. You can't really trust them, because that was the narrative going around on the right at that point.
Wow.
And it happened, dude. It happened. Like, she literally said that. And I was like, oh my God, you're so brainwashed. You have no idea.
That's nuts. I mean, like, when you're taking the great leader's word over, even Fox News, which is already pretty propaganda-y, that's...
Yeah. Yeah. It's not even... It doesn't even tiptoe into that. It's like outright manipulation. I mean, I don't know how much you keep up with the things that they actually get caught doing, but the example I always like to make is that CNN correspondent Jim Acosta, whenever that White House aide was trying to remove the microphone from him, the copy of that footage that Fox News aired on their station, the very moment where his arm comes down on the reporter was sped up to make it look like he was more forceful. And I watched the video alongside the original, and you can clearly see where it happened. But if you're just watching the Fox version, you don't see that comparison. So it looks like he was being more forceful.
That's insidious.
My sister even touched on, we talked about, I brought up Rittenhouse at one point, and the very first words out of her mouth is, did you see the whole video? He was acting in self-defense. And it's literally the things that, subs that we lurk, these are memes on those subs.
Yeah.
They're actually saying this shit, This
right.
Is what, they fall for manipulation tactics. I witnessed a lot of these in my last relationship, and a lot of the one thing that I've noticed them do a lot more than others is they gloss over things. Like, they may not know at all what comparison they're trying to make, what point they're trying to make, but they assert it as if as if you should already know what point they're trying to make. I don't know if I'm saying that clearly enough. They'll gloss over something as if they made the point and balls in your court, but really they didn't say anything of substance at all.
No, I totally know what you mean. And it's hard to describe. It's like an attitude thing almost.
Right, but the people that I notice on the left are the ones that will catch that. And they'll be like, well, yeah, but what does that have to do with anything that I just said? And that's where you get a lot of conflict, because I don't know, personally I think that, and this may be unfair to say, but I think that the majority of right-wing voters, maybe not the people in power on the right, but the right-wing voters at least, I feel like they either lack or do not utilize fully their critical thinking skills. I want to believe that anyway. I don't want to think that a lot of these people got pulled unwittingly, but, looking at how machine learning algorithms service up things that they know we're going to be tempted to tap on, to feel a lot more that way. Like, a lot of these people didn't so much seek out this movement as they were indoctrinated in through, what's it called, the boiling frog effect. Are you familiar? If you put a frog straight into a pot of boiling water, well, obviously the frog's going to know that it's being boiled, and it's not going to be a pleasant experience at all. But if you put a frog into a pot of room temperature water and you slowly raise the temperature of that water, by the time it won't realize how far gone it is. I feel like they were, served up a controversial video here and there on Facebook that just happened to catch their interest. And, here's Alex Jones, and he's really angry and passionate, and he sounds like he's saying something that he really feels strongly about. And, I feel like it's a process, like the frog in the pot. It doesn't happen completely overnight. It doesn't happen necessarily quickly. It happens over time through more and more exposure. If you want me to be honest, there's a lot of parallels with that, and I guess, like, picking up girls at a bar,
I see it.
You're gonna come up with some sort of common ground. I try to bring humor because it helps me cope with the bullshit that is our planet.
Yeah, totally.
So that's usually my end. Where, like, if the end result is that you want to bring this girl home in the analogy, the end result is that you want to bring this person on your side of the aisle. And
want to get out of here and read Das Kapital? That's the dream.
There's a song. The song that reminded me of is called "My Anarchist Valentine," and it is the best. Like, you definitely gotta check it out.
Cool. All right. Okay. So this is gonna sound kind of sappy, but I think the advantage the left has is that fundamentally a lot of it is about, like, human connection, and like that feels good. Humans are social animals, right? And a lot of what the right thrives on is sort of alienation and isolation. In that, like, especially with stuff like QAnon, it definitely encourages this worldview of constant anger. Or at least paranoia, I guess, maybe is more to the point. I've had some friends who have gone very far to the right. It seems to correlate with sort of a really bad mental state for them. It's maybe too much to say that they're synonymous or that they're related. Just in my experience, usually you're not in a great place when you're thinking like that.
If you want to know my honest opinion on it, it's kind of twofold. Number one, I came across a research paper that compared brain scan images of people who identified as politically left-leaning versus politically right-leaning, and conservative versus liberal, etc. And but the original study found that on average, conservatives have a higher volume in their right amygdala than liberals. The thought behind it is that the right amygdala is responsible for your fight or flight, so it can be triggered by fear, which is something that if you've ever watched any sort of media outlet that leans right, that's what they capitalize on. They want you to be afraid of something. It's always something that you're supposed to be afraid of and that you're supposed to be angry at, and those are both extreme emotions. What I take that to mean is that fear as a propaganda tactic is predominantly more effective on that group versus on the left.
Could be confirmation bias, you know what I mean? The people who gravitate towards the right maybe tend to have a bigger fight or flight response because that's what appeals to them. I'm looking this up right now. It's Scientific American. It seems like there's some real scientific basis to this.
That's the first part of it. The second part of it, in my opinion, I think that we'd find that a lot of people on the right are in some way victims of mental abuse. I think that I think a lot of times this mentality arises out of something like that, some sort of dysfunction in the family structure. And, because of that, whatever happened, it makes them in some way easier to gravitate that way. I'll use an example as, my soon-to-be ex-brother-in-law. He is pretty far right-leaning, And unrelated, but the fallout of all of this is the reason why I'm looking into purchasing a couple firearms. But
man, damn, that's serious.
Yeah, it's a better safe than sorry situation. I don't realistically think that anything's going to happen, but I don't want to assume that and be wrong. So
fair, yeah.
So, anyways, the second part of that, like I said, I think that we would find that a lot of people found this ideology or moved towards this ideology. And this ties back into what you were saying about how I don't think you put it this way, but the Republicans in general, they fall in line. And I feel like that sort of behavior, to an extent, may be inherited, but I think that it's predominantly learned behavior that appeals to authority.
Hey, Sonder here. So, due to personal matters, it took me a while to edit this together, but I think it was a really interesting interview. I think the key takeaways are probably that radicalization takes time, and that similarly, de-radicalization takes time, and has some parallels with any other human relationship in that you need to find common ground, build rapport, and respect their agency, or, in this case, make them think that it's them who is deciding to de-radicalize. Planting seeds of doubt in their beliefs, in the ridiculous propaganda they've been inculcated to believe. I want to take this moment to reiterate that you really aren't obligated to do this. This is merely something you can do to help the cause if you're feeling up for it and if you think it's possible. If it's a family member, if it's someone you're already close friends with. This pandemic has all of us a little lonely and at least a little isolated. And so, if you don't want to reach out to someone just for that person to be a Nazi and for you to slowly move them away from outright genocide, I understand. No pressure. But if you do have the strength to do it, and you have someone who's already close to you, are enslaved to these beliefs, then give it a shot. This interview went on for quite a bit longer, and I think there's a lot of worthwhile stuff in it, but it's more about how to radicalize someone farther to the left. If you're interested, let me know in the comments, and I will edit it together. In the meantime, a video essay on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is probably coming up next. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.